Police and security officers are supposed to be people that we can trust. They are supposed to help us in our most vulnerable moments, keep us safe, and take care of the community. But what happens when they don't do that? And instead, they commit horrifying crimes that leave people absolutely heartbroken and traumatized. Today's case is one that happened back in 2016. And I want you guys to prepare yourselves and get ready, because this one is going to be a long one. Hey guys, I'm Elise. This is 10 to Life. Let's jump right in. All right, guys, Labor Day has passed, which means we are officially entering fall, also better known as spooky season. Now, don't worry, I'm not like decorating for Halloween or Thanksgiving or anything yet, because you know I do like to decorate early. Literally, Christmas is up in my house on November 1st usually. But anyways, it still means that it's fall, which means it's time to like watch all the documentaries, get super cozy, like watch all the spooky stuff on TV. And you know who's always hooking me up and will hook you up too with the best quality content and amazing library of stuff to binge, and that is Magellan TV. Now, if you're new here, let me break it down for you. Magellan TV is a new type of documentary streaming service. They have all different types of genres, which, you know, my favorite is true crime. But here's the best part. They're adding new content every single week, so you will never run out of things to binge. And everything streams in 4K, and get this, there are no ads ever. So the docuseries that I just put into my queue is called Conviction: Murder in Suburbia, and it's re-examining evidence that led to the conviction of Glenn Razzle when he murdered his wife back in 2003. So I am so excited to order my froyo and get to watching on that. Now, aside from having just so much amazing stuff to binge, here's the best part. Two things, actually. Number one, Magellan is giving you a free month-long trial. The link is in my description. They're hooking you up. No strings, no risk. Try it. You'll love it. But get this, they are also now doing their annual True Crime Fanatic campaign, where they are paying one of you true crime fans and viewers $2,400 just to watch true crime. It's called the True Crime Dream Job, and it's for U.S. residents only, but Magellan TV is offering one lucky true crime fan $2,400, which is $100 an hour, to take on the challenge of binge watching 24 hours of true crime content. And I know that's no sweat for all of you guys. So what an amazing way to binge a lot of content during spooky season and get paid for it. However, you have to hurry and apply because the application is open only through September 15th. I will put the link in the description of where to apply. Thank me later, because that's two amazing things I just hooked you up with. Free month-long trial of Magellan and the opportunity to get paid cash money for simply binging true crime content. You're welcome. Thank you, Magellan, for not only being an amazing sponsor of this channel, but also thank you for always coming through and giving me something new to watch so that I'm not always watching these One Tree Hill reruns every single day. All right, guys, go apply and let's jump into today's case. 23-year-old Kaylee Sawyer was born to Julie Van Cleve and Jamie Sawyer on March 2nd, 1993. Her parents divorced while she was still young, but they both went on to remarry, and Kaylee was close to both of her parents and her step-parents. Her dad Jamie married a woman by the name of Crystal, and her mom Julie married a man named Chris. She was also the first grandchild, the oldest, and the only girl in her immediate family. So you can imagine that Kaylee was just gushed over all the time. Kaylee was also a big sister to 4 younger brothers, Zach, Cody, Jaden, and Caleb. When Kaylee was little, she couldn't say Kaylee Sawyer, so she started referring to herself as KK Foyer. The name KK stuck, and she was lovingly called that by her family all growing up. And growing up, she was sweet, always happy, always smiling, and brought joy to everyone around her. She absolutely loved to read, and her favorite book was Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. The people in her life felt extremely lucky to know such an amazing girl. Kaylee was a high school cheerleader and had many friends as well. Oftentimes her parents would kind of have to reel her in a little bit because if they gave her an inch, she'd run a mile. She loved to just live life to the fullest all the time. and she was a very kind, sweet, and happy girl. In 2016, Kaylee was living the life of a normal 23-year-old. During the day, she was a dental assistant at a dental practice called Aubrey Dental, and she was also attending school at Central Orange Community College, and she wanted to become a dentist one day herself. Growing up, she had always wanted to be a brain surgeon, but as an adult, she realized that she really just wanted to be a dentist. In 2016, she had been dating her boyfriend, Cameron Reemhofer, for 2 years. The two of them seemed very happy and in love with each other. They were even planning on getting engaged and married in the future. People who knew the couple were just immensely happy for them, especially Kaylee's family. They just adored Cameron. Kaylee and Cameron lived together in Bend, Oregon, in an apartment near the college campus. It was a very nice, upscale, safe area, and it was often patrolled by security officers. On July 23, 2016, Kaylee attended her friend Elise's bachelorette party. Now, Kaylee initially wasn't going to go and had told people that she was going to be out of town, but at the very last minute, she decided she wanted to go. So Kaylee met her friends at a country western bar called Mavericks in downtown Bend just after 8 p.m. Kaylee was having a blast. She was having fun, wearing a little black dress, and just looked so cute. After a while, the bachelorette party was winding down a little bit early, and some of the friends decided to go home around 10:30 p.m. But Kaylee was still having fun, and she was also a little bit tipsy, so she wasn't ready to go home yet. Not quite yet, which we've all been there. So she and another friend decided that they were going to continue to party, and they went to another bar downtown. At the second bar, Kaylee had a few more drinks, and she was dancing with a guy that she had just met. A friend saw Kaylee doing that and texted Cameron to let him know what was going on. So shortly after midnight, Cameron went to the bar to pick Kaylee up. And it's kind of unclear exactly how that happened, as some reports say that Cameron went after receiving the text message, and other reports say that Kaylee called him to come get her just after midnight. There are also reports that Kaylee texted the friend who texted Cameron to apologize for her behavior. Regardless of how Cameron got there, we know that he picked Kaylee up. But on the way home, the two of them had an argument, presumably about what had gone down at the bar. When they returned to their apartment complex, Cameron parked the car, and Kaylee was apparently still fuming from the argument. So Cameron went up to the apartment to let Kaylee just hang out in the car and cool down. About 10 minutes later, Cameron went back down to check on Kaylee, but she was no longer there. She apparently had left to go on a walk, to let off some steam, and to think. Now, this wasn't unusual for Kaylee to do when she was upset. But sadly, in this day and age, doing so in the middle of the night isn't always the safest choice, as we have learned, let alone when you're intoxicated. So Cameron tried texting Kaylee around 12:30. He said, "Where are you? Please come home and talk to me at least. You're being unfair." Kaylee responded, "Are you kidding? What a joke. I'm sorry I'm not good enough for you." To which Cameron responded, "I don't get how you can say that." And Kaylee responded, "If you wanted me, you could have, but you don't care. If you cared even a little bit, you'd know where I am. Sorry, I'm not as important as your phone." Cameron responded, "Kaylee, please just come home to be with me. I don't want to play this game. I'll start searching, but please help me out." Kaylee then told Cameron that her phone was about to die. At that point, Cameron told her that he had driven slowly up and down College Way and didn't see her. So Kaylee sent one final text to him saying, "Are you kidding? Because that's bullshit. Goodbye, phone off." And Cameron responded to Kaylee, "Kaylee, please." I think it's important to note that while that was, yes, a heated text thread, it doesn't necessarily define their relationship, because according to everyone, they had a great relationship. But as we know, with alcohol flowing, things sometimes can escalate quickly, and you're not always thinking the most rationally. And on Cameron's end, hearing that Kaylee had danced with another man, I'm sure it hurt his feelings and probably upset him. Also, keep in mind that they were still in their early 20s at this point, so the way that they handled that conflict is much different than older people probably would. Now, I do not agree with the fact that Cameron left Kaylee like that when she was so heavily intoxicated and when they were arguing, but as we know, hindsight is 20/20. So anyways, when Cameron woke up in the morning, Kaylee was not in bed with him, nor was she in the apartment. Cameron tried to call her, but her phone was still off. He thought maybe she was at a friend's house and her phone had died. But time passed, Kaylee's phone was still dead, and Cameron became extremely concerned. He tried to contact Kaylee's friends, thinking that maybe she was with them. He even went to Kaylee's friends' houses to look for her. Kaylee's mom, Julie, was out of town on her way back from a trip, and her dad, Jamie, and stepmom, Crystal, were at church when Cameron began trying to reach Jamie. Now, at that point, Cameron didn't know if he was overreacting or freaking out for no reason. He just couldn't find her. And Jamie didn't initially think anything of it. He thought that it had just been a bad night and she probably just went to a friend's house. And remember, Kaylee had also been known to go for walks and really just remove herself when things would get heated. So that was even more of a reason why they thought maybe she had just gone to a friend's house or something of that nature to just blow off some steam, wait it out. But Cameron was still freaked out. So he had even called Kaylee's grandma Sharon and gone to Kaylee's mom Julie's house. With no one knowing where Kaylee was and time just continuing to pass, Cameron called 911.
Dispatch, how can I help you? Hello?
Hi. I'm not sure if this is quite the right number to call. Last night I got home from the bars with my girlfriend, and she got upset at me and ran off. And I chased her and wasn't able to find her, and I still haven't heard from her. Her phone's off. I called all our family, and they haven't heard from her, so I'm wondering what you recommend I do.
We can put in a call, and we can have officers and deputies look for her.
Okay.
And where was she last seen at?
College Way.
College and what?
Alpine Meadows apartment complex. It's like at the top of College Way.
In that apartment complex?
Yes.
In a specific apartment or?
In the parking lot.
Just in the parking lot? You guys don't live there? Or?
Yes, we live there together.
Okay, what's the address? And what's the apartment number? And this is her address as well, the Aubrey Pines?
Yes.
Okay. And it was last night?
Yeah.
About what time?
It was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Take out walking or something from this address? Like, she was mad?
Yeah, she was mad at me, so I walked inside and told her to come meet me in there when she's like, calm down. And then I went back out in 10 minutes and she was gone. And I called her a few times and she said she was walking down the street. And then I guess she said her phone was about to die. And then I couldn't get a hold of her after that. I haven't heard from her since.
Okay. She took off on foot?
Yes.
What's her last name?
Sawyer.
Sawyer?
Yes.
First name?
Kaylee. Kaylee.
And what's her date of birth?
March 2nd, 1993.
And she's got her phone with her?
She did last I saw her, but it's been dead all day, and
what's the phone
I imagine she would charge it. Let me look at my phone real quick.
Sure.
All right.
Do you know what carrier it is?
It is Verizon.
And does she have a vehicle? Is it parked in the parking lot, or?
She has a vehicle. It's parked at her friend's house, and I've been over there and talked to her friend, and she hasn't heard from her either.
And the vehicle's still there?
Yep.
What's the color, make, and model?
It's a Subaru Impreza, and it's like a dark grayish blue.
Do you happen to know the plate on it?
I don't.
That's fine. It is parked at a friend's house?
Yes.
Any idea where she would go, or?
I don't know. I figured she'd go where her car was to her best friend's or her mom's, and I've been over to both. Talked to her dad, and I just haven't heard anything from anybody knowing this.
Okay. Does she go to, like, have a job that she needs to be out that she missed or anything like that?
Not today. She has work tomorrow at Aubrey Dental.
Okay. And any diagnosed mental or physical health issues?
No, none that I know of.
Kaylee's mom also ended up calling 911 that day.
Dispatch, how can I help you?
Yes, I need to have an officer call me. My daughter is missing, and she is over 23, but she has epilepsy and some medical issues.
What's the address that she's missing from?
It's her boyfriend's. She and her boyfriend, they live up at the Regency by COCC. I don't have the exact address.
Okay. Are you able to get it?
I'm driving up there right now to talk with him and see what's going on so I can call back with that. But her boyfriend did call, and the police officer said, well, just keep looking for her. And she,
What's the phone number he would have called from? Do you know?
Oh, gosh. Do you know Cam's phone number? Okay.
All right. And what is your name?
My name is Julie, Juli. Last name Van Cleve, VANCLEAVE.
And your phone number? Okay. I'm going to have the officer who spoke with her boyfriend earlier give you a call, okay?
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Her parents seemed to be worried that police weren't taking Cameron's call very seriously. In the call, I'm sure you heard Julie speak about Kaylee having epilepsy. While Kaylee's seizures were well managed, oftentimes someone having a medical issue of that sort will get more attention on their case in efforts to find them, especially if they are in need of medication. So throughout Sunday, Kaylee's friends were also looking for her as well, but she never came home that night either. And despite people continuously trying to reach her, her phone just still wasn't turning back on. It was going to voicemail over and over and over again, which for a 23-year-old is not typical. People rely on their phones. They usually always have them nearby, and I would even say it stresses a lot of people out if their phone dies. So Kaylee not plugging it in, even just to talk to her parents, which is something she always did, was concerning. As each hour passed, the level of worry was continuing to increase. By this point, they had already made a missing persons poster, and they had community members also searching for Kaylee. Julie and her husband had been driving around for hours looking for Kaylee, and they had even gone to the college and to Kaylee and Cameron's apartment. The police told her to go home and that they would give it to the detectives on Monday, which was the following day. So at 7:30 p.m., Kaylee was put into the database as a missing and endangered person after not being heard from or seen for over 18 hours. Officers then interviewed Cameron, the boyfriend. Now, obviously, when someone is missing, the first person usually looked into or asked questions is their partner. At first, his story was causing some questions to be had, but Cameron really did seem genuine in his concern over Kaylee. He was so cooperative. He allowed them to look at his phone, his computer, his car, and really anything that they needed. So he was pretty quickly ruled out. Some of Kaylee's friends were also interviewed, and they were quickly ruled out as well. Police also thought that there was a chance that Kaylee went to meet up with that guy that she had met at the bar and danced with. So they tracked this guy down, and he told the police he didn't even get Kaylee's phone number, and their interaction was also just super casual, just two people hanging out. Like I said, Kaylee was very reliable. She also enjoyed her job, and she didn't miss showing up to work ever. So when Kaylee didn't show up at work the next day on July 25th, that is when people really started to freak out. She clearly hadn't just been with a friend cooling down. Something must have really happened for her to not show up for a scheduled workday. People were frantically looking for clues and also getting pings under Kaylee's Apple ID. They were rushing to follow up on those pings, but just as quickly as the pings brought a glimmer of hope, that lead was gone when they realized it was one of Kaylee's old phones that was being used by a friend as a tablet. Kaylee's Apple ID just hadn't yet been removed from that device. While they were still trying to locate Kaylee, the most unsuspecting thing happened. A woman by the name of Isabel Lara came into the Redmond police station. Now, Isabel was a newer police officer in Bend, Oregon herself, so she was somewhat of a familiar face, kind of like a colleague, you could say, since sometimes neighboring police stations would work together. But she wasn't scheduled to be in the station at that time. and she was specifically requesting to talk to the supervisor. Isabel's husband, Edwin, moved to the United States at 11 years old from Honduras. He had gotten an associate's degree in criminal justice and was working as a security officer for Central Oregon Community College. They ended up doing a second interview with Isabel where they learned a lot of new information. Edwin was working the night shift from somewhere around 3 p.m. to 2 or 2:30 a.m. on the night of the 23rd into the 24th. Now, apparently the two of them had talked a little bit during his shift. They had mostly texted about a PowerPoint slideshow that Edwin had created and wanted Isabel to fix. Anyways, Isabel went to bed around midnight and claimed to wake up somewhere around 7:30 or 8 a.m. And by that point, Edwin was home and in bed with her. They had a usual routine of getting up and going to church together on Sundays, and the plan that Sunday was no different. They got up, got ready, and headed to church in their Jeep. Edwin was extremely religious too. He never missed church unless he absolutely had to. He was very devout in studying his Bible and all of the things that went along with his church going. But there was one thing that was different that Sunday morning. Edwin was being very quiet. And he was kind of also being standoffish toward his wife, Isabel. Usually he would rub her head and show her affection throughout the church service, but at church that day, he hadn't done any of that. After church, Isabel confronted him about how he was acting, but she didn't push it and kind of just let it go. Isabel had also noticed that his car windows were cracked while parked at their house, which was unusual, but Edwin told her that it was just always hot and she didn't think anything else about it. So the two of them grabbed Pizza Hut and went home to watch Netflix for the afternoon. Edwin then suggested that they go see a movie. So they went and saw a horror movie called Lights Out, and they went with Edwin's cousin named Vinny. After the movie, they walked around for a little bit, dropped Vinny off, went home, showered, had intimate relations, and then went to bed. On the 25th, that same day that Kaylee didn't show up for work, Edwin got out of bed at 10:30 and went to the living room where Isabel was watching TV. Isabel noticed his eyes were very teary, so she asked him what was wrong and turned off the TV to give him her full attention. He then proceeded to tell her that he had hit a woman with his work car during his previous shift and that he panicked and hid the body. Isabel was trying to get more information from him, but he really wouldn't say anything else, and he was just pacing back and forth. In her mind, she thought if this was an accident, why wouldn't he have just told somebody? Edwin then grabbed her gun out of her purse and said he had to go. And on his way out, he told her that the woman's stuff was in the shed. So Isabel went into the shed and she saw all of the stuff. And a little while later is when she went to the police station. Isabel was highly emotional during the interview, and it was very clear that she had nothing to do with what had happened to this woman that Edwin had hit.
It doesn't make sense to me. I think he was seeing that like I wasn't believing it, like it felt like a movie, like it wasn't making any sense to me. But when I saw the stuff, I'm like, oh fuck.
But he never said what. All he said was he hit her and he panicked. He never said.
But it wasn't making any sense to me because I'm like, why would somebody then do that, especially you, especially him? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Did he say when this happened?
Now, police could not believe what they had just heard. Not only was it a disturbing story in itself, but add in that he was a security officer whose job was to help people and keep people safe. And he had a degree in criminal justice and confessed to his wife, who is also a police officer. Why on earth would he hide her body? Now, at this point, Isabel didn't know where he would be headed, but said that maybe he'd be headed toward California. It wasn't too hard for the officers to start putting pieces together very quickly. They had been looking for this young girl named Kaylee, and now they have someone saying that a woman was hit and her body was hidden. They then put out an alert for all officers to be looking out for his silver Altima. They were able to get a search warrant for Edwin and Isabella's home, and in the shed, they found a trash bag. When they looked in the trash bag, they found a few things, including a blood-soaked green purse, high heels, a wallet, and a passport, which all belonged to Kaylee and the passport she had been using as an ID during the bachelorette party. There was also another plastic bag where they found a clump of blonde hair that had blood all inside of it and a boulder that had blood all over it. They also found his work uniform, which was covered in blood. And as if that wasn't enough, they found the creepiest poster board inside that shed. There was literally a poster board full of things about the railroad killer. Now, the railroad killer is a serial killer who murdered at least 15 people in the 1990s. He would hop on and off freight trains and murder people. Only one woman survived after he beat her, took advantage of her in a sexual, violating way, and then left her to die. This person is just an awful human being. But Edwin apparently had done a project on him and had even put a printed off photo of a victim's body on there. He had written on there that the killer always killed with a blunt force trauma and with a weapon of opportunity. So obviously at this point, the investigators' red flags were going off. If she had just been hit by a car, why would there be a boulder with blood all over it? What about the bloody hair and the bloody purse? It became increasingly clear that this couldn't have just been an accidental car versus person incident. The case had to change now from a missing persons case to a homicide case. They reached out to the FBI for assistance, and they also had to let Kaylee's family know about this status change. 2 detectives showed up at Kaylee's dad Jamie's house. Jamie spoke with them and then returned to his bedroom, where his wife Crystal was. Jamie told her, "My worst nightmares have just come true," and then told her that it was now a homicide case. The same news was also delivered to Kaylee's mom, Julie. There was a search scheduled for Kaylee scheduled the following morning. Jamie and Crystal were scheduled to attend, but they were not supposed to tell anyone that the case had now turned into a homicide investigation. Instead, they knew that they were going to have to go and help everybody else who thought that they were looking for a living Kaylee, while her parents knew that they were actually looking for Kaylee's body. It is just so beyond heartbreaking to think about. So meanwhile, while all of that was happening, Edwin was still on the loose, still on the run. They needed to find him, and they needed to find him fast. But he was in the wind. And not only was he on the run, but his crime spree had just started. Edwin had switched cars out at his parents' house, meaning that he no longer was in that Nissan Altima that everybody was looking for. And he had now driven to Salem and parked outside of a Ross Dress for Less store on the evening of the 25th. There, he was waiting for his perfect opportunity. That opportunity came when he saw 19-year-old Andrea alone in her car. Andrea was on her phone taking a Snapchat photo after a long day at work. Suddenly, someone was up against Andrea's car window. What she thought was maybe a coworker playing a prank on her turned out to be Edwin. Edwin forced his hand into her barely cracked passenger window and unlocked the door. He took the opportunity to use his gun, threaten her, and force her to start driving him. Her car was on empty, so they had to stop for gas, and he warned her that if she made eye contact with anyone, he would shoot them and it would be all her fault. She begged him to just take her car, but he didn't want that. He wanted her car and her. Not too long into the drive, he explained that she would be taking him to California. However, just an hour later, he started to get really freaked out. He was worried that she was driving too fast and that she would get pulled over. So he swapped places with her, but not before handcuffing her so that she could not escape. During the drive, Edwin had told her that he had killed Kaylee and was even showing her news reports about Kaylee. So I can't even imagine the amount of fear that she was already experiencing being kidnapped, but then especially when he had told her that he had killed someone, and now she was handcuffed and literally had zero way out of the situation. He was even trying to ask her personal questions about her life. But she was smart and refused to tell him anything, knowing that he could potentially harm her family members. They stopped driving that evening and planned to sleep at a hotel in Oregon before crossing into California the next day. While checking into the hotel around 11:40 p.m., Edwin made it seem like Andrea was his partner. He had warned her ahead of time that if she did anything to try and get help, he would kill her too. So once in the room, Edwin showered while Andrea was handcuffed to the bathroom door with a shirt over her head. Then he tried to get her to shower, but she refused. He forced her to take sleeping pills and even told her if she didn't take them, he had syringes to put it inside of her. Then Edwin started making, of course, unwanted advances toward Andrea, who was handcuffed to the bed. He began by licking her earlobe and asking her if she was a virgin. But seriously, thank goodness she had an alarm set on her phone that happened to go right off at that very moment. And when he questioned her what that alarm was for, she told him it was a reminder to take her medications for a very harmful STD that she had. Of course, he was questioning her about the STD, but she just kept making it sound more and more awful, all in efforts to keep him from taking advantage of her. And thankfully, it worked. He ended up leaving her alone. But shortly after that, someone called Edwin, and it freaked him out again. He told Andrea that they had to go. He was convinced that helicopters were now searching for him. So they got back in the car and started driving around 1:30 a.m., but Andrea's car broke down in Wairika, California. It had been leaking oil since before Edwin kidnapped Andrea, and she knew at some point it was going to give out. So Edwin was scrambling and had to now find another car. So around 5 a.m. on the 26th, he entered a Super 8 motel room where a 73-year-old man named Jack Levy was. Jack had actually stayed in that motel in that small town many times prior. When Jack screamed for help, Edwin shot him in the stomach before fleeing the scene and taking Andrea with him. However, when he fled, he didn't have Jack's car keys, so now was plan B. He needed to find another car. Edwin decided a close-by gas station was the best place to find a car. There, an unsuspecting couple, their son, and 2 grandkids were getting gas and using the restroom. They were on a road trip driving back to LA after having gone on a trip to Canada. The grandfather and son were inside the gas station, but the grandmother and 2 grandsons were in the car. Edwin opened their car door, shoved Andrea in, and pointed a gun at the grandson in the driver's seat, saying, "Drive or I will shoot." While they were driving, Edwin point-blank asked them if they ever had the urge to kill. Then he confessed to killing Kaylee and then shooting Jack at that hotel when attempting to take his car. Now, it's important to say that while Jack was in critical care, he did end up surviving and recovering. The grandmother was in the back seat, screaming hysterically in her native language of Farsi. Edwin told the grandson to make her shut the hell up or he would shoot, and then he took her phone to make sure that she hadn't called 911. But this poor woman's grandsons didn't really know how to calm her down. They didn't even know how to speak Farsi. After the boys asked, he agreed to let the grandmother and grandsons go on the side of the road, where they were ultimately found around 5:40 a.m. But he still would not let Andrea go. He told her he needed her in case the police shot at him. Essentially, he was planning to throw her in front of him and let her get shot instead of him. But he also had a bulletproof vest on, so Andrea was like the double protection for him. As they kept driving, he took Andrea's phone and recorded a video while forcing her to continue driving.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say that I apologize for everything I've done. Most likely I'm going to get caught. And sorry about that girl. In Central Oregon. And I also want to let family members, Andrea, that she's fine and she will be fine because so far she's been doing what I've been told her to do. You know, and if you guys are wondering if I have done dirty things to her, no. All right, I'm not that kind of guy. You know, I used to kill that other girl, you know, and I regret it. I regret killing her. You know, she kept screaming and I had to silence her forever. So, you know, like I say, she's still fine. We're driving and she'll be home pretty soon. I'm sorry to her grandma and her family members, to her boyfriend. You know, I'm sorry for everything that I caused. Okay, and you'll see her pretty soon. Okay, tell the cops that not to shoot us, because if they shoot us, then that's not my fault. Okay, but sorry, everybody. Bye.
After taking the video, Edwin told Andrea to post it on Facebook and write a caption saying, murderer on the loose. Andrea didn't want it posted on her feed, though. She was feeling embarrassed about the whole situation and didn't want any of her Facebook friends, including family, previous teachers, pastors, etc., to see it. Hearing that she was embarrassed makes me even more sad for her, because embarrassment was the last thing that she should have had to feel in that moment. But because she didn't want to post it, she once again had another smart idea. She posted it, but with the settings changed to only me, which meant that nobody else could see it besides her. At some point, they had also switched drivers again, and Edwin was back to driving. It is said that Edwin also called Isabel around that time, and she was trying to get him to turn himself in. They also apparently were able to get a cell phone ping on the I-5 freeway near Redding, California. So a chase was started, and at 6:40 a.m., Edwin called 911 on himself. The 911 call is really long, so I will play a couple of parts of it here right now for you.
911 emergency reporting.
Yes, hi. This is Edwin Lara, and I'm the guy on Interstate 5, going at high speed. I know you guys have the chopper on me already.
Yeah.
And, I just want to say I am going to turn myself in.
Okay, where are you at?
Okay, I'm on I-5, I think close to Redding, if I'm right. So, I am wanted for murder in the state of Oregon.
Okay. Edwin,
Yeah.
where are you at right now? Can you stop?
I am going to stop once I hit Redding. Once I'm in Redding, I'm going to stop.
Okay, can you tell me where you are right now?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Let's see. There's a sign right here. 50 miles from Redding.
You're 50 miles
Or
away.
wait,
Can you see a mile mark or
Corning.
anything?
From Corning.
You're 50
So
miles from Corning.
Yeah, 50 miles from Corning. 50 miles south or north of Corning.
Are you by yourself or?
No, I have someone with me. I kidnapped her in Oregon. She's innocent. Her name is Andrea. What's your last name?
He doesn't know.
I'll let her give her last name so you can call her family, okay?
Okay.
Just give me a second.
What's your name?
Hello?
Yeah, hi. What's your name?
Andrea?
Andrea, what's your last name?
Maes, M-A-E-S?
Okay, are you hurt at all, Andrea?
No.
No? Okay.
I want to ask you a favor.
Uh-huh.
So I have asthma.
You have asthma? Okay.
Yeah, so you tell them not to be too rough on me because, I can barely breathe right now. All right, so that's all I wanted to say.
Do you need
I don't
any
want.
kind of medical or?
Yeah, well, I think so. I'm gonna need my inhaler. I forgot my inhaler at home. I went all over Salem, Oregon, looking for an inhaler, but I guess they don't sell it, behind the counter or out of counter. So.
The fact that his main concern was his inhaler is just mind-boggling to me. Like, sir, you killed a 23-year-old girl, kidnapped a 19-year-old, shot another man, and kidnapped 3 other people. And your inhaler is the biggest concern here? Like, get a grip.
I am wanted for the death of Kaylee Sawyer at Bend, Oregon.
What's the girl's name? Kaylee what?
Sawyer?
Sawyer?
Yes. Or Swire, maybe.
And she was from Bend, Oregon?
Yes. I just want to say that it was an accident. So I work for campus public safety there. And she was really drunk, and I didn't see her, and I ran her over.
Okay.
And then after that, I just... she was still breathing, and then she was screaming, and I decided to silence her forever.
Okay.
And I am very remorseful for that. And I know this is being recorded, and I just want to say to the family of Kaylee that I am sorry. I am sorry for what I did to her, and in time I will tell them where the body is. I will just, that way she can rest in peace.
Do you want to let me know or just have this recorded where it is?
No, I remember.
Okay.
So, hopefully the police officer doesn't shoot me, and I'll survive,
Yeah. Well,
but
we're not going to let that happen. Like, you just do what you're supposed to do and do what you're told to do.
Edwin told the operator that there were notes left on his car which he had left at the Ross parking lot when he kidnapped Andrea. He ended up pulling over after talking with the 911 operator for about 13 minutes. He handed the phone to Andrea, who was absolutely terrified of what was happening. And I have to say that the 911 operator was incredible. Her responses and ability to stay calm, I really think played a massive part in why Edwin decided to pull over. I truly believe that had she said a couple of things differently, he may not have stopped and the outcome could have been very different. So after Edwin pulled over, he got out of the car and he was arrested just before 7 a.m.
Get your hands up! Get them up! Step out of the vehicle! You got me? Step out of the vehicle! Turn around! Turn around! Keep turning around! Walk back! Step over to your right. Step over to your right, away from traffic. Drop down to your knees. Don't move.
And Andrea was actually taken into custody too. After his arrest, Edwin was interrogated for 6 hours while he was being detained in California. They read him his Miranda rights and his consular rights. He did not ask for an attorney at that time and began giving information freely. He drew them a map telling them where they could find Kaylee's body. The location he shared was on Highway 126, across the street from a mailbox which read 18700. While they were searching his house, they had found his Bible, which was clearly very much so used and appeared to be used often. So they really tried to tie his religion into all of this and his habits of being a man of God into their efforts. Edwin initially claimed that he had accidentally hit Kaylee.
What happened, man? What happened? Like the straight up, what happened?
So I was putting the signs up where there was an event going on.
At school,
college. It's a cyclist event or whatever. You know, I was in a hurry because I want to get out of here. And I was going to turn south on College Way on the D4 lot. So I was going to turn south on the do not enter area there. And I didn't see her. She was wearing all black. So I was in a hurry, so it was my fault. And I wasn't expecting anybody, you know, at that time of night. So I just turned and I mean, I didn't hit her that hard. I just bumped her with the patrol car, bumped her with the front rack. And she fell down. And at first I thought, you know, first thing I was, oh, I killed her, you know, but I didn't hit her that hard. So I got off the car and she was really drunk. And then she looks at me and then she started screaming.
She started screaming at you?
She did. So I panicked and I just grabbed her by the throat and told her, shut up, shut up, shut up. So she passed out. I put her on the back of the patrol car, drove her up the B12 lot, and then I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. She already seen me. She saw my face. So I opened the door, and that's when she came back. She started screaming again. So I grabbed the chokehold, and I was telling her, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. She was just struggling to scream. So I threw her down and I hit over a rock on the head. After that, I dragged her body behind a tree there and I hit her with another rock.
He eventually admitted to violating Kaylee in a sexual way, and his reasoning he gave them was that she was already dead. But Edwin wasn't done talking. He then changed his story to have him mistaking her for a prostitute and intentionally picking her up and getting her in the back seat. He then confirmed that the prostitute version of his story meant that he had never hit her with the car. However, considering the nature of the community and the likelihood of encountering intoxicated students walking home late at night, the detectives knew he was lying about him thinking that she was a prostitute. So they called him out on his clear deceit and told him they knew that he knew he was going to kill her from the moment that he saw her. They then continued to use his religious beliefs as a tactic.
I respect you enough, Edwin, at this point, that I've asked you for detail, and now I'm going to give you my own. Okay? Those are the cold, hard facts. Does God still love you? Will he forgive you? Will he bring you back into his heart? Will he? Questions you have to answer for yourself. But the truth of the matter is that her blood cries out, man, that her life is gone. It will never be replaced. The truth of the fact is this: what you mistook for a hooker was an absolute angel, was the apple of her mom and dad's eye, was the breath that they breathed, that they spent and cultivated all their life raising and growing. And she is gone forever with your semen all over her. That's the truth, man. Okay? It's brutal. It's hard to say. It's hard to sit in here. But you got to face it before you can look your God in the eye and ask for that forgiveness and be able to receive it.
After they got him all worked up in the interrogation, he then spoke about his urges to kill.
So, I think all throughout my life, I have struggled with somehow the urge to kill. But what has helped me not develop that, in a sense, was when I married my wife. It kind of dissipated because I had something to look forward to.
He had even told them that at one point he planned to kill an ex-girlfriend's uncle, but that he never had followed through. During his time in the interrogation room, Edwin had written letters for Kaylee's parents at the request of the detective. The detective then encouraged Edwin to read them.
Is this addressed to Dad?
Yeah, the last one is for Susie.
Okay. I think it would play pretty well on recording if we read this out loud. It might show some of your emotion. Might show.
Want me to read it?
I would love you to read it. Thank you, sir.
I've been trying to ask Kaylee for forgiveness, but I don't think her soul hears my crying because God doesn't allow the devil to talk to angels. However, I know Kaylee hears you, and if you find it within your heart, please ask her to forgive me. Please, I beg you. Please. I know that I will spend the rest of my life asking God to forgive me, but I don't think He will. Sir, this is directed to her dad. I am not sure what your name is, but I know for a fact that you loved your daughter. I read something that you were desperately looking for her, and that touched the little heart I have within me. I say a little heart, a little bit, because a man like me don't have a heart. Please forgive me, Spirit. Please forgive me, and please ask your wife to forgive me too. I fail you. I fail my community. I fail everyone, including my family. I am really sorry. I beg you. A man like me doesn't deserve the job I had, and I will never have it again.
At some point in the interview, Edwin also mentioned his cousin Melvin, calling him Vin, and I believe this is the same person that he went to the movies with that day. And he said that Vin helped him move Kaylee's body. While detectives in California were pressing Edwin for details, the district attorney for Deschutes County in Oregon announced that Edwin was found with a woman in the car with him, and he was being charged with murder, and they also said that they had found a body. A couple of hours later, they told the community that Andrea was actually a victim and was in the process of being released from jail. She was reunited with her family after that, and she had to have been absolutely traumatized, not only from the kidnapping, but from initially being treated like a criminal as well. It's just so awful. While in jail for over 12 hours, just to name a few things, they had to fingerprint her, strip search her, they questioned her, and took her mugshot. They had told her she'd see a judge the following week after being transported. Now, I understand that they had to rule things out, but I also think that they could have handled things a little bit differently given her emotional state, and especially given the fact that Edwin had repeatedly said on the phone that he had kidnapped her. One sad detail to note is that when Kaylee's parents had been notified that Edwin was in custody after the chase, they were told there was a woman in the car. Heartbreakingly, Julie initially thought that Andrea might have been Kaylee, which is just so awful to think about. The body that the DA had said that they found did end up being identified as Kaylee's body. Her body had been found in the location that Edwin gave. It was placed over some rocks, and because of the way her body was placed, the detective who initially found her thought that she was alive and trying to crawl up the rocks. But when he checked for a pulse, he was not able to find one. Kaylee's autopsy revealed that she had died from blunt force trauma. Her skull was fractured, and there were also signs of strangulation and other injuries. Edwin had an arraignment for his charges in California, which included attempted murder, kidnapping, carjacking, and assault with a firearm. However, he was eventually transferred back to Oregon to face charges for the murder of Kaylee. The court process was complex, as there were now 2 states involved, and charges from things that happened in both states. Not only that, but his attorneys were arguing that his 6-hour interrogation and confession should be thrown out. There were a couple of reasons for that. The first one was that Edwin had apparently asked for an attorney when he got to the Tehama County Jail in California, but the people working in the jail didn't really understand that he was asking for an attorney right then. They thought he was asking more about the order in which things go. And not only that, but apparently in California, there is a law that when someone is arrested and brought to jail, they have the right to 3 calls in the first 3 hours. Edwin was not given those 3 calls, which, according to his attorney, was a violation of his rights. He had even complained about the attorney situation on the phone with Isabel.
Hi.
Hey, babe. What are you doing?
Well, here, trying to put my life back together.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
So when you were calling earlier, I wasn't able to, it was getting disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to prepay the call to just know that I guess there's some issues there, but I guess you figured it out, or I'm not sure.
No, I didn't. Can you advise my parents of that?
Well, if they pick up, they totally turn off their phone, but yeah.
Okay.
So when is your court? When are you having court?
So right now I feel that all my rights are being violated because an attorney hasn't been appointed to me, although, they read my rights when I got here. They're like...
So has hablado o no has hablado?
Yeah, I keep asking for an attorney, and there is no attorney because for me to be transferred to Oregon, and that's going to take a while. All I want is a lawyer. That's all I want. I want a freaking lawyer because my rights are being violated right now. And a lawyer was supposed to be appointed to me from the moment I asked for a lawyer. And I've been asking for lawyers since I got basically booked yesterday or whenever that was, 2 days ago. I don't know what day it is today. I don't even know what time it is. I love you.
So okay, I'm doing what I could do for you.
Just give me that freaking lawyer. That's all I need.
Yes.
The news are going to get here Sunday, so they're going to talk to me on Sunday.
Talk to who?
The news Channel 21.
Talk to you?
Yeah, they want to talk to me. So
entonces estoy en esto, lo que estoy en esto y estoy hablando con tus papás, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's getting done.
All right, just get me the lawyer. I just need a lawyer. That's it.
Yes,
Right now, I'm being possibly in prison. At this time, I'm not even know why I'm being booked for. They haven't told me these are your charges or anything like that. That's all I want. I just want a lawyer. Just give me that lawyer.
The judge ended up ruling that the 6-hour interrogation and confession could not be used in the trial, which I can only imagine was devastating for both her family and law enforcement, who were still working so diligently on the case and trying to ensure that Kaylee received justice. The death penalty was being sought in Edwin's case, and in any case, evidence is crucial, but especially when the death penalty is on the table. However, there was still one confessional piece of evidence that could be used. Remember the notes that Edwin had mentioned on the 911 call? Well, when law enforcement had gone to that Ross Dress for Less location in Salem while Edwin was being interviewed in California, they did find 2 notes. One of the notes read, "The place I killed her is on the B12 lot. Run her over on College Way." While the other note said, "This note is to say I'm sorry for taking her life. 18700. To her dad, I'm sorry. To her mom, I'm sorry. It was an accident. She screamed and I had to silence her. My intention was not forever. To my wife, I'm sorry. I will forever love you." Thankfully, Kaylee's family never had to sit through a trial that would undoubtedly have been brutal and likely almost impossible to get through, because Kaylee's body had been deemed unrecognizable by law enforcement. Her parents had been advised not to look at any photos of her from after she was found. I'm sure had the case gone to trial, there would have been photos shown in the courtroom, which would have just added another layer of pain in this. In January of 2018, 18 months after Kaylee's murder and 9 months before the trial was scheduled to start, Edwin pled guilty to aggravated murder and robbery. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Multiple loved ones of Kaylee's shared very emotional impact statements before he was sentenced. Even though they did not have to sit through a trial, they were not happy that he was not receiving the death penalty, which, in my opinion, is totally understandable. 3 of the most impactful statements came from Julie, her mother, Kaylee's grandpa Jim, and a close family friend named Doug Gray. During their statements, Kaylee's mom, Julie, said, "I'll always be the mother of a murder victim, but your mother will always be the mother of a murderer and a rapist." Kaylee's grandpa also spoke, and he spoke about his 3 wishes.
Number 1, to have our Kaylee back with us, alive and well, and pursuing her life. Number 2, I wish to have this piece of garbage, the defendant, sentenced to death for what he's done to my Kaylee. And number 3, I wish the court system in the state of Oregon would just hand him over to me and allow me to administer the death sentence.
Then he said he will die in prison and it will be a lifetime experience for him. He'll probably wish he'd been given a death sentence, rot in hell scumbag. Their family friend Jim's speech was also one that was highly emotional. And Edwin gave his own spiel at the sentencing, where he said, "Today I've seen your pain. Today I've seen your anger. I don't have much to say to you at this moment. I only have a single prayer. But someday I would like to speak to whomever is willing to listen." And then dramatically, he prayed a prayer.
God Almighty, who art in heaven, all Elohim will deny. I'll ask you to please heal the hearts, all those broken hearts of this community.
Exactly how Kaylee got into the patrol car is still unclear, but Kaylee ended up trapped in Edwin's campus security vehicle, equipped with an enclosed cage in the back, which meant there was no way that Kaylee could escape. Over time, more details have come out, specifically in a podcast that was released by a local news channel in Oregon. Kaylee's loved ones, including her parents, participated in the podcast. The podcast explained that once Kaylee was in the car, Edwin offered her money in exchange for sex. When she said no, he began insulting her before taking her phone and her purse. Kaylee was screaming, and Edwin was worried that he would be caught. He then choked her until she was unconscious. He began driving to a remote parking lot on campus called B12, which which was a long, windy road. Kaylee woke back up and was clearly fighting. She was trying to climb through the little window in the middle of the cage divider, and she was reaching for the sirens and the lights. Edwin then choked her again until she was unconscious, dragged her out of the car, and hit her in the head with the boulder. When he thought she was dead, he brutally violated her in a gruesome sexual way. But Kaylee was not dead at that point, and Edwin was not done with his evil plan. He then dragged her behind a tree and hit her again, but this time with a much larger boulder. He left Kaylee there for dead, while he went to shower and clean his car before the end of his shift. He even talked to a coworker. When he was done, he went back in his own car and he wrapped her bleeding head in a plastic bag before placing her body in his trunk. He then dropped her off to the place she was eventually found at and headed home to continue on with his life like nothing had happened. In April of 2019, Edwin was sentenced for abducting and terrorizing Andrea. In the sentencing hearing, Andrea spoke. Now, there is no audio of Andrea's impact statement because cameras were not allowed. However, part of what she said reads, "You thought you stole my life from me, but I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior. I'm stronger than I've ever been, and you're going to rot where you belong." Andrea also said, "I am a survivor. I did conquer you, and I defeated you. I am moving past this and moving on with my life. My mom raised me to be this beautiful, strong, confident person, and I feel a part of that was taken from me when all of this happened. Now I am starting to refine myself and regain that person again." Edwin's attorney was trying to argue for a 20-year sentence, which is typical for the charges that he had received. He also called Edwin's crime spree an enigma and brought up Edwin's diagnosis of myotonic dystrophy, which is a genetic condition that causes muscle weakness and wasting over time. Edwin and his mother have both been diagnosed with it, and when I did some of my own research on the diagnosis, I learned that sometimes people who have it experience things like mental fatigue, daytime sleepiness, forgetfulness, confusion, or brain fog. And while Edwin maybe did experience that, which I don't really know if he did or not, I really don't think that that diagnosis has any impact on his urges to terrorize, harm, and kill people. And clearly the judge didn't think so either, because he actually sentenced Edwin to a second life sentence to serve, which ensures he will absolutely never get out of prison. Now, I'm sure you may be wondering whatever happened to Isabel, Edwin's wife. Well, she actually filed for a divorce just weeks after Kaylee's murder, and not only did she file for a divorce, but she ended up leaving the law enforcement field completely. A lot of people placed blame on her for not calling 911 right away and instead going to the police station around 30 minutes later. They believe that had she called 911 and also told them Edwin's parents lived nearby, they could have found that Edwin had switched cars earlier, known what to look for, and possibly stopped his entire crime spree. And while that may be true, I really don't think that anyone can place a ton of blame on her. She didn't harm anyone, and you could clearly see how emotional she was in her interview. I'm sure that she was in absolute shock when Edwin told her that he had killed a woman. Now, you also probably remember that Edwin mentioned his cousin Vinny in the interview, who helped him move the body. And actually, law enforcement are still actually searching for this man, whose real name is Melvin Rosalio Perez Mejia. They do believe that it is possible that Melvin may have helped move Kaylee's body. If they are able to find him, and if there is enough evidence, they do plan on charging him. However, they still aren't sure if that will be the case. Edwin still has all of those charges in California that he has yet to deal with. However, it is kind of unclear if he will ever face them. After all, he's already serving 2 life sentences in Oregon. In 2018, Andrea posted a picture of her side by side with 2 officers who worked on the case. She shared her story in a Facebook post and thanked everyone for their support. After Kaylee's death, her family filed a lawsuit against the community college. Their attorneys argued that other employees were aware of Edwin's fascination with dead people. Once he had lied and told other employees that he had been a police officer in Honduras, his home country, and that he had seen bodies all chopped up. He had also shown sexually explicit photos and videos to coworkers on numerous occasions of him and a woman he was having an affair with. There was even one female employee who refused to ride in a car with him because of how he acted. The community college and Kaylee's family ended up settling the lawsuit, with the school paying her family $2 million. Part of that settlement was planned to go toward a book club that Julie started called KK's Readers in honor of Kaylee. The program provides books, specifically Kaylee's favorite childhood book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, to Head Start and early education programs. After the settlement, Julie did an interview where she spoke about her satisfaction with the settlement.
But in a way, it has brought her back to me. You know, everybody that had a hand or a role in this horrible thing that happened to her has been punished. And I finally feel that I'm able to grieve my daughter, the loss of my daughter, and that she gets to drop that tag of Kaylee, the murder victim.
Kaylee's family also worked on a law called Kaylee's Law, which was signed by the governor in May of 2019. The law aims to make sure something like this never happens again. It's all about getting police and campus security in line, making them more accountable, and making them trustworthy so that students and communities are safer. But unfortunately, this isn't the end of the story. A man named John Vieira and his accomplice Emily Megan Pickett, two 30-year-old drug addicts, burglarized a self-storage facility in Bend, Oregon in 2021. They cut the locks of 18 units, one unit that belonged to Julie, Kaylee's mom, and her husband. They were remodeling their house and had stored their belongings in that unit. The stolen items included 2 guns and Julie's Coach purse full of jewelry worth more than $30,000. They brought the stuff back to their room at Motel 6. However, the items that they deemed worthless, including a green glass heart that held some of Kaylee's ashes, were tossed in a dumpster behind the motel. A month later, John was arrested at St. Charles Bend Hospital. He confessed to tossing the heart along with Julie's original wedding ring and a necklace that said, "Stay Kaylee Strong." He pled guilty to several theft charges among a slew of others. Kaylee's mom was at his sentencing and spoke to the court and to this creepy little thief, saying, "You tossed my daughter's body not just once, but twice, as if she was worthless. You probably saw a small green glass heart while rummaging through my purse, probably thought it was of no value and threw it away. But to me, that heart meant everything. Now I have to come to terms with my daughter being discarded 3 times." Despite the hardships and grief that Kaylee's family has faced, they continue to move forward, and her memory will never be forgotten. Her legacy will live on, and her boyfriend Cameron seems to be doing well based off of social media, although I know that's not exactly the best way of measuring how someone is doing. I'm sure that coming to terms with their last conversation and how things ended has been very painful for him, but I hope that over time he has realized that it was not his fault. It's terrifying to imagine what Kaylee went through. What are you supposed to do when the people that are supposed to keep us safe are also predators? It's a scary thought, and ultimately in this case, it led to Kaylee's tragic and horrifying death. And it's also terrifying to think about what Andrea went through, and how scary that must have been for her as well. And part of me can't help but wonder if in some twisted fascination way, Edwin was trying to mimic the railroad killer who he had been following and who that poster board was all about. What do you think? Do you think that that was just a coincidence, or do you think that that is what planted the seed in his mind to commit these horrific acts? Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today, guys. I know it was a long one. If you appreciated the case coverage, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already so that you don't miss any other true crime deep dives. And I will be talking with you guys again very soon. Until the next case, stay safe.